Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Sarah. I am joined today by Matt Harris, who is a Pearl expert. Matt, how are you?
Hi, Sarah. I'm great.
Good. I'm so glad to have you. I've been doing a series lately where I talk to people from all different walks of life. We've talked to film and TV directors, we have talked to neurologists, and I'm very excited to talk to you. But I want to give everybody a little background about who the heck you are, because you're pretty cool. So, Matt Harris is a renowned pearl specialist, a jewelry designer, and historian with a very deep passion for the world's most captivating gem. He holds a graduate degree in pearls from the Gemological Institute of America. He's also a certified pearl specialist with a Cultured Pearl Association of America, and also serves on its board of directors, which is actually quite a big deal. Matt has delivered compelling talks about pearls for organizations such as Women's Jewelry Association and at international events like the Pearls of the Bay conference. His presentation, The History of Pearls, rarely told stories about the world's most interesting gem, is featured on Air Tahiti. Is it Nui or
Nui.
News?
Nui.
Nui. It's okay. Let's start this over again. So
Air
his the
Tahiti
history
Nui.
Air Tahiti Nui. So if you happen to be on a flight to Tahiti, you'll probably be able to catch one of this feature that Matt is on the in-flight entertainment. So that in itself, I want to ask you about a little bit more. He is frequently profiled in outlets like National Geographic and the Wall Street Journal. Matt's expertise also reaches over 50,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, Matt Harris Pearls, which we will link below so you can check it out, where he shares his knowledge to inspire others to fall in love with pearls just as he has. So, all right, tell me a little bit more about that in-flight entertainment feature, because if I'm on a plane on Air Tahiti, I can see then, like I can choose your little segment to watch on the back of the headrest, right?
Yeah, and I tell people, you know what? Why watch the feature film when you can learn about pearls for an hour next time you're on Air Tahiti, right? So
100%.
you can watch
Exactly.
Caddyshack anytime.
Or
Um,
yeah, Barbie and Oppenheimer. I'm
yeah,
over it.
I've
So
still yet to see Barbie and Oppenheimer, neither of them. But so it's really cool. I did a speech in Tahiti. Trying to think, it was actually in Tahiti. This speech in
yeah,
Papeete, and it was about the history of the pearls. And it was really cool because the person in charge of fisheries, which is in charge of real pearl formation and farming in Tahiti,
yeah.
came. And executives from Air Tahiti came, and a whole bunch of local people came, which is kind of cool. And then I was on my way out of town, and I got a call, and it was somebody from Air Tahiti Nui saying, "Can we have lunch tomorrow?" And as a result of this lunch, I don't remember if they mentioned it or did I mention it, but we basically decided to take a recording of the speech, which I had recorded, and put it on the airplane so that people could learn about pearls and pearl history, and a little bit about Tahitian pearls too. It's not just about Tahitian pearls, but it's the history going up to that. So yeah, you can see it on all these Air Tahiti Nui planes. The difference between Air Tahiti Nui and Air Tahiti is Air Tahiti Nui are it's the big planes that go to Paris and Seattle and LA and French
Oh, okay.
Polynesia. Then once you get to French Polynesia, there's Air Tahiti, which is the small planes that go between the islands. So they're slightly different airlines. Yeah.
But still,
But
very
really
big deal because you're on international flights every day now,
all over. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all over for people going to Paris. They could still watch you. So I love that. Um, very, very cool. You also recently, well, I'm just a little excited. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you can see Matt's very cool background. He's got a great studio. He's got cool lighting. You can see some of his products below. I was hoping to see like the pearl bra maybe in the background
I
on
wasn't
the
sure if I
mannequin.
should take it off for this or not. But
I really love that.
sometimes I keep it on, sometimes I don't. I've got 3 different versions I'm working on. This is one of them.
That is so
Um,
cool.
but this one, I think I'm gonna go for a little bit lighter version. So we've got a few different prototypes we're working on.
A black
Yeah.
one would be neat too. Black pearls.
Oh, great. Yes, and probably
Yeah.
would. On
Anyway, you, um, and this, if this is like a new concept for you, there's a lot of celebrities. Maybe you can name one, Matt. I don't know, who are wearing like a lot of like pearl bras or pearl stuff like on red carpets. So
Yeah, it's been a big deal at least the last few years on a lot
Yeah.
of, red carpets, especially in the music industry,
Yeah.
Grammys and whatnot.
Yes.
Big deal, and men, a lot of men are wearing pearls as well, and then you've got people wearing entire pearl outfits, so yeah,
Yes. Actually, I saw someone wearing an entire dress that was made of pearls. I don't know if you shared that or where I saw that.
probably that
Um,
was, what's her name? Kardashian, was it Kardashian?
yeah, it
I
could have
believe
been.
so. Yeah, and the problem is it failed and it broke, during the
Oh,
this was the, Grammys, I believe, last
yes.
2024,
Yeah.
2023, and actually broke because what her nor the designer were aware of is that these things, when you get hundreds of them, they wanted to use real pearls, so they get very, very heavy, and you
Right.
have to string and knot every single one, and eventually they just got heavy and they broke, and so her daughter was following her and picking up pearls everywhere.
Oh gosh. My God.
That's
Um,
a story in itself.
geez. Yeah. Okay. All right. Also, last to touch on before I get to my questions for you. Well, I think we've known each other for like 3 years now,
Yeah,
2 years,
thereabouts,
something
yeah.
like that. And
Three.
I really didn't realize that men were wearing pearls more.
Oh, really?
And you opened my eyes to that. I started to pay attention, and that's when I started like sending you pictures of like Tyler Hero on the Miami Heat, like wearing pearls for streetwear, and like I realized that much men are wearing pearls now. And a couple of our mutual friends have purchased, who are men, who have purchased beautiful like black pearls from you as well, like as singular, like a pendant, like you're wearing right now.
Yeah, and,
And
our friend Jason wears one of my pearls on his wrist every day
yeah,
for 6 months now. Yeah, he hasn't
yeah,
taken
he
off.
has. I know. I love that.
Mm,
Okay. So pearls are for everybody, is my point there.
yeah,
You recently did a really fun reel on Instagram where you lit a strand of pearl, like a strand of fake pearls on fire to
I did.
test their authenticity. And I just was flabbergasted. I made my 13-year-old watch this. I'm like, look what Matt's doing. But my question for you is, that's probably like you wouldn't really want to do that with if you were pretty sure those were real pearls. Real pearls wouldn't withstand, they would be damaged, right, from heat like that. Um,
Well, that was the whole point of the video is that there's a
right,
rumor going around that one way that you every time I do a pearl video on how to tell if your pearls are real or fake, somebody in the comments says, or you could like put a flame to it and real pearls won't burn. But the point of that is that how is that practical? So I was at a flea market, and the
yeah,
idea is I took these pearls up, which I knew they were fake because I planted them. I didn't really want to
right,
take some pearls, and I burned them, and sure enough, they got all charred and blackened and ruined them. So
and melty,
yeah,
yeah.
they're not real. But now that kind of is not cool for the person that you were going to buy them from to hand them back burnt pearls. So I'm just trying to
Um,
have fun with it. That's all.
yeah, it
Um,
got my attention for sure. And also, you're basically teaching people like this is not an effective way, but also, what is a better way? If we have some pearls, or we inherit some pearls, or we're at the flea market and we see some pearls, what is the better way to check if something is authentic?
Tooth test. So here's a pearl that from my desk. Rub it on the bottom of your teeth. If it feels
Hmm.
gritty, then it's a real pearl. If it's smooth, it's not a real
Perfect.
pearl. Or if you're afraid to put like somebody else's pearls in your mouth, it's just on your tooth, whatever.
Yeah.
You can rub them against each other and you'll feel a gritty texture if it's real, and they'll slip right off really quickly if they're fake.
Cool. Okay. Well, see that I knew that, and I'm glad
But
that I've been
hey,
doing it right.
yeah.
Um, okay. So, how do pearls tell their own story through their origin and formation and cultural significance? I mean, pearls, when you look at them, they tell their own stories, right? I mean, and there's so many different varieties of pearls. Can you give us some examples of like how a pearl is telling its own story?
Oh, can I give you an example? I can give you like 18,000
Right.
examples.
Go for it.
Um, no, it's just too long. Let's talk about stories to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Stories around anything are cool. Like I'm a romantic guy, and I think everything, not just pearls, everything, everybody has a story, has multiple stories, and I love telling them, and I love hearing about other people's stories. And it doesn't have to be pearls; it could be anything. But pearls, yeah, part of the romance of pearls, and part of the reason that I love them so much versus a lot of the other gemstones is that most gems, all gems, come from the earth, and they're dug up and they're faceted by a human, cut to where they sparkle. But pearls, come from a living organism. It's the only gem
Right.
that comes from Mother Nature, comes from a mollusk, an oyster, or a mussel. But not to mention that the history goes way back, way before diamonds. And as a matter of fact, the only written record of a gem older than a pearl is rubies. And pearls go
Mm,
back to, oh gosh, at least 5000 BC is I believe, the first record that we've heard of a pearl that was worn as jewelry. And for much of human history, they've been the most important, luxurious, um, exclusive, mysterious. I can go on and on. Gem in the
yeah.
world, and it's depicted through everything, art, history. And if you go through a museum next time, those of you guys that like to go walk into a museum, do this. Look at pictures and see who's wearing the pearl. And it's never mentioned in the little paint or the little description by the painting. But you'll be surprised at how many pearls are in these famous paintings throughout history as a sign of, oh, it could be so many different things. In biblical times, they're a sign of purity. Think of the pearly gates of heaven, right?
Yes.
It's called that for a reason. Um, uh, it could be, like I said, purity, wealth, elegance. It goes on depending what part of history you're looking at. Pearls has symbolized something that's just um, so incredible, and so worthwhile, and it's changed a lot for men and women. So yeah, there's a million stories you can tell about pearls. I could
Do
have
you
picked
have,
one if you wanted one. That
I, I, I was going to ask, like, do you have a favorite type of pearl? Like, is there, well, I have so many questions, but do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I like the black pearls, Tahitian. So this on my neck is a Tahitian
Hmm.
black pearl. These on my wrist are Tahitian pearls. So these come out of, I usually have an oyster on my desk. I don't think I have one right now, but they come out of a oyster in French Polynesia. They're called black pearls or Tahitian pearls, but there's something about those I really love. Maybe it's
I do
because
too.
I think they're kind of masculine. Although most men wear white pearls now, I love Tahitians.
Yeah. I also, there's so many different colors of pearls. Can you list some of those colors?
It's all over the map.
And
Peach, pink, cream. Yeah,
and these are
just
naturally this color. Okay.
naturally colored. Yeah, yeah. And then even more recently, in the last, say, 20 years, they've figured out a way to make naturally colored, like purple and copper pearls. Yeah, but if you get something that's like bright blue or purple or hot pink, it's going to be dyed,
Dyed.
which is
Okay.
fine. Just that, some of them are dyed, some of them aren't.
The farming for, I mean, most pearls really that you're going to find like that have been put into jewelry, these are farmed pearls. Is that correct? Or
99.9% are cultured because you can't really dive and pick up pearls anywhere in the world anymore.
right,
Partially because it's illegal to do so, and also because it's just not efficient, because you might get one in every 10,000, mollusks with a pearl. It's dangerous to drive or to dive. And again, it's against the law in most places.
right.
So they're all cultured, which means that a human takes like a bead and opens up the mollusk, the
Mhm.
oyster, or whatever, and puts the bead in it, closes it up, sticks it in the water, and then that creates nacre, mother of pearls, another word for it, around this irritant into a pearl. So they're called
Got
culture
it.
pearls or farmed pearls. Yeah.
What I do want to ask you one of your favorite stories is about pearls, like in
Okay.
history that you
Yeah.
can think of.
I got two that are really close.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna go through fast. One of them has to do with men in pearls because people say, well, men don't wear pearls. They're not
Yeah.
masculine. And there's a guy named General Pompey, Pompey. It's not pronounced
Okay.
Pompey. It's pronounced Pompey, and it incidentally eventually has a little bit to do with the town of Pompeii that you're aware of. Anyways, he was a teenager, and he was one of Julius Caesar's generals. And at the time, he actually conquered what they call 7 continents. But continents weren't continents as we know them; they're more like kind of countries. But
Yeah.
he was known as being so ruthless, and he was literally cut up his prisoners, and like butcher them to death. And as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, his nickname was the Teenage Butcher. Well, he was responsible for turning Rome from its own colony into an empire, and did this for Julius Caesar. He was a big deal. And when he conquered the 7th continent, he came back, and a lot of his spoils, the things that he captured during this trip, were pearls. And he was a big fan of pearls. As a matter of fact, his birthday was coming up, and he had a
Mm.
parade for 3 days, and he created the likeness of himself out of pearls and
No.
paraded it around town for 3 days just to show how awesome, cool he was. And it was all the thing. As a matter of fact, Pliny the
Wow.
Elder, you may have heard about, who wrote
Hmm.
a famous book. It's kind of the first encyclopedia of the world. Talked about how, oh my gosh, Pompey's parading himself around pearls, and what a disgusting display of wealth. So try telling
Incredible.
Pompey that pearls are for girls, right? So that was one. Another
Absolutely.
one that I love is Cleopatra. Now, Cleopatra, well, weirdly enough, it's about the same time period, right? Because,
Yeah.
yeah, time of Julius Caesar. Now, Mark Antony was one of Julius Caesar's soldiers as well. And Cleo and he, they say they loved each other, had an affair, they partied all the time, and they had all these great feasts. And then one day, Cleo went up to Mark Antony and said, I'll bet you I can host the most expensive banquet in the history of the world. And he said, like, Cleo, you're on. Like, let's do it.
Of
So
course.
sure enough, they have this banquet. They've got all the food. They've got the dancing monkeys. They got, the band and all that sort of stuff. And the party's gone great. But Mark Antony comes up to Cleo and says, this is a great party, but this is not the most expensive banquet in the world. And she said, wait a minute. So she grabs off of her ear a pearl earring. Now, at the time, the earring was the most expensive, and everybody knew this, pearls
Right.
in the world. So these were these big pearls. They were worth, I think it was 10 million sesterces, which equivalent would be, I'm going off of memory, maybe 20 million bucks or something like that at the time.
Wow.
And she takes one of the pearls off, and she goes to one of her servants and says, put this in a glass of wine. And they do that, and it dissolves. And then she drinks it, and she says, there we go. We just had the most expensive banquet in history. And then she goes
Oh
to
my
reach for the
gosh.
other one. And one of the guys is like, Cleo, you've done it, right? You got the record. Don't worry about it. Don't ruin the other pearl. So that's another story.
Would it really have dissolved in wine?
No, it's a
Okay.
complete farce. Yeah, it's a story that doesn't work. And I only know because we did this experiment. I'll do a YouTube video on this soon because we've got all the video.
Yeah.
We've crushed up pearls. We put them in red wine, white wine. We put them in vinegar because a lot of people say it's vinegar, not wine.
Right.
We put it in different strengths of vinegar. We've done it for weeks, and we've taken videos of it. And it's a story, but it's a good story.
It is a very good story. Oh, I love that. That reminds me, I wanted to mention this. This is not exactly Pearl related or story related, but you and I were at an event recently, and one of, I think your BFF, Natalia, was there.
Yes.
And Matt had brought some diamonds, a
Mhm.
diamond necklace that was pretty impressive. And Natalia got to wear it at this event. But tell us a little bit more about that necklace.
I
There
happen
it
to have
is.
it. This is a total coincidence. I happen to have it in front of me because I was sending pictures of it to somebody today
It is.
because it's for sale. Yeah, it's princess quality is what it
It
is.
is.
16 carats of diamonds. And yeah, so my friend Natalia and I, she's just so glamorous. And so I love to,
She is
whenever we run into each other, I usually bring something for her neat to wear. She's worn some incredible pearls as well. So this is what she was.
gorgeous. See,
Yeah.
that's the kind of friend to have.
Yeah,
Somebody
right.
who
She gets
brings
to
you,
borrow it. She doesn't have to pay for it. It's great.
right, 17 carats worth of
She wants it for a
diamonds to
party.
wear.
All she has to do is call me.
Ah, so fun. Okay.
Right.
Now, if somebody really wanted to learn a little bit more about pearls and and more get into more of the history of pearls, what would you recommend? Are there books about this specifically, or are you going to write that at some point?
Yeah, that's kind of why I got into it, is that
Yeah.
I realized it's weird. Think about, like, if you guys, whoever's watching this right now, think about a subject and then think, can you say get a book or go onto YouTube and learn everything about it from like a guru for this? And the
Yeah.
chances are yes. And I've always been fascinated with pearls, and I was actually running a software company for a major part of my life. But I would always search for knowledge, and I didn't really find a lot, and I didn't necessarily find one or two big sources either. So there are some books about pearls that are really helpful. One is called Pearls: A Practical Guide, which is probably the most informational book I've ever read about pearls that I can think
Mhm.
of. and I go to it all the time. It's on my other desk at home.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of these things in pearls, as with some other things, I imagine there's a scientific side and there's the storytelling side. And a lot of the pearl education tends to be the scientific side, which for me is actually kind of boring to read because I just don't like reading the stuff and then go to the reference and the stuff and the reference. I want the story around it because
Yeah.
I'll remember it better. And there's not a lot of that up there. So the reason that I started embracing and dedicating myself to teaching people about pearls is because I felt that we needed somebody just to talk plain about pearls and tell their story, so that people can fall in love with them like I have. And I do that mostly through YouTube because it's just the way that you can get information out way better than I think a book. I know this is a book podcast, but YouTube's great for it.
It is.
Yes, I'm so tempted to write a book about pearls that's more about storytelling of
I
pearls.
think like a collection would be amazing.
I'm so tempted to do that. So I don't know, maybe, but it would be something that I would
Yeah.
enjoy reading as a person that honestly isn't a really
Yeah.
big book person, as you and I have discussed.
Yeah. I'm planting the seed. I think it's a really good idea because there are people that are, along the lines of people who enjoy art history and that sort of thing. Like that would be an incredible, nonfiction book for them to read. You're bringing me back to like my art school days when I took art history, and I remember being a little overwhelmed at first with the idea of having to remember like the painter, the date, and like the country of origin of all of these works of art. But as I began to dive into the stories behind these paintings, that information was totally easy for me to remember because now I had
Exactly.
associated it with that story, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So I think again that storytelling really comes into it and is so important. I also kind of wanted to transition a little bit, talking about you and I have both have, well, you more than me now, but as entrepreneurs, storytelling is a really powerful tool we know to connect people to, I don't want to say to making a purchase exactly, but to buy into that brand loyalty or to appreciate the story behind like a piece of artwork that's been created. I think, you have a background in the wine industry like I do. And for me, I have told this story before, but um, it was our winemaker who would come into the tasting room, and he would always sell more wine than, our sales team, because it was that hands-on expertise that he was sharing, and the storytelling that went behind, from grape to bottle, that people really loved. So for you, do you
Yeah.
use storytelling now? Like, I mean, I think you do, but how do you use storytelling now in your website and with selling pearls or to educate about pearls?
I think it's all about the storytelling, and I love that so much. And it doesn't matter what you're selling, you name it, whether it's wine
Oh
or if it's
yeah,
pearls or whatever. You see, stories, they sell dreams, they breathe life into ideas, they inspire action, and they help you remember, just as you said in
yeah,
your example of art history. And everybody that is listening to this right now is probably saying yes because they remember things related to stories. And when it comes to owning something or drinking a glass of wine, because I'm a big wine guy too, I remember the story. I remember I used to work at some vineyards, and let's say I was working at Spring Mountain Vineyard in Napa Valley. I know that everybody that came there and bought wine would go home, and even if they're drinking that bottle of wine 5 years later, they're telling the story with whoever
oh
they're
yeah,
about of them being at Spring Mountain Vineyard and us walking through the mansion and telling ghost stories and what smells were there that day and taste what the weather was like and seeing the cats that run by,
yeah,
that sort of thing. So whatever you're doing in life, if you want to convince somebody of something, tell a story. If you want to sell something, by all means, tell a story. And if you want people to remember you, tell a story. And you have fun doing it as well. So storytelling is not just a part
yeah.
of my life; it's my whole life. And with pearls, if you go to my competitors, they sell pearls, and you can go and you say, I want this kind of pearl. Okay, here it is. It's that price. Same person over here. I want this pearl. Search for it. Okay, what's the better price? Maybe.
Right.
With my website, you go and it's all about storytelling, and we teach you about pearls. We have like a little motto at top that says learn, love, wear, which means our first goal is to teach you about pearls so that you fall in love with them, and then you'll wear them. And if you buy them from me, great. If you buy them from somebody else, whatever, we're helping people learn about pearls. And you do that by through storytelling, and you're telling true stories. Well, the Cleopatra one's not true, but
Well, it's good though. It's still good.
yeah, we're not making stuff up. There's so many
Yeah.
fascinating things to tell. So yes, I'm a big fan of storytelling.
You also mentioned that there were two books that have really shaped your life, and I wanted to talk about those just a little bit.
Okay.
I think the first one you mentioned was The Greatest Salesman in the World by, is it Og
Mandino.
Mandino?
Og. Yeah.
Og,
Og.
sorry. Tell me more about that. What is it? What is it about? Because I haven't read it. And then how did it impact you?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm so excited to talk about this because I went and listened to some of your podcasts, and this is where I get to be along the side of all these great book people and people that have read books. I hope at least little. So let me start by saying, as we mentioned at the very beginning, don't hold it against me, guys, but like I'm not a big book reader. I just never have been. I mean, I read like the Iliad and Hamlet because we were required to in high school, and some of
Yeah.
those other things. But honestly, I'd pick up Cliff Notes, if you guys remember that was, and I
Oh
just
yeah.
regurgitate some stuff in Cliff Notes and pass. And Cliff Notes work totally. So I don't even think I read those books. But and then when I do read now, I tend to read books on information because I'm an information junkie. I love to learn. So it's books about pearl history or Vietnam pearls, or it could be I read one recently to help Natalia out, who's doing a party about flappers, prohibition party. I read this great book about the flapper era,
Yeah.
and I just love learning information and history. So I don't read a lot, but yeah, there's two books that really, by far, impacted my life in a huge, huge, huge way. Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino, and then Illusions by Richard Bach. I'll start with Illusions actually instead of Greatest
Yeah. Okay.
Salesman, if you don't mind. If can we go through both? Do we have time?
Absolutely. We have all the time.
Okay. Illusions I read first, and I think I was 16 years old. I don't remember how I got this book, and here's the reason I read it. It's like 96 pages or whatever. I mean, it's short and the print's big, and so that's the only sort of books that I would read. Uh, but I read it, and it's fascinating. I'm not going to tell you all about it, but I can tell you enough to get anybody who hasn't read to go out there and get it because it did
Go
change
pick
my
it
life.
up.
And
Yeah.
I'm giving a speech tomorrow night. I'm talking about illusions. I gave a speech not too long ago, and I talked about illusions, and I brought the book and I gave it to somebody in the audience, so I don't have it to show you right now. Uh, but it's about it's called The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And it's about a Messiah who decides he's going to give up and quit being Messiah because everybody just wanted to see him do the tricks, like walk on water and,
Yeah.
water into wine and bread and all that stuff. And he just gave up on his followers. And he went back to what he liked doing, which is barnstorming. So this is in like maybe the 70s, I guess would take place in her 60s, and he flew this old vintage plane, and they'd stop in the Midwest and pick up kids and like for $3 give them a ride. And he met another barnstormer, and they became friends. And the other barnstormer, just through talking about them, started talking about life and seeing these kind of slight miracles and asking him about the miracles. And the other barnstormer, Richard, just became kind of a student. And it's interesting because Don was the name of the Messiah,
Hmm.
Don Shimoda, and he gave his student this book that he was reading, and it's called the Messiah's Handbook. And the interesting thing about this book is that when you would open it, there was no pages. And he said the reason it doesn't have pages is because when you open it, you're opening it to the place that you need to open it to at that particular time. So you don't read the book front to end. You just open the book whenever you want and you read the book. And throughout this adventure of them doing this barnstorming, uh, Don or the Richard would just open the book and it would talk to whatever is just in his world at that moment, which
I
is
love
neat.
that.
Yeah, and I'll remember one quote in there that I have
Yeah.
used my entire life. And in one of these stories, he opened the book and it said this. It said, "Argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours." So, in other words, the minute we say we can't do something, well, we can't do something or we
You're
won't do something.
100%
It's just not going to
right.
be in our world. That alone changed my life a lot, not to mention everything else in this book. And imagine this over and over and over again. And what you realize is that life is kind of an illusion, and that you have, this is going to sound totally corny, everybody,
No,
but
go ahead.
you really do have the ability to perceive life the way you want to perceive it. And if you can realize that things aren't good, things aren't bad, they're just the way we perceive them and how we react to it, then you actually become in control of your own destiny. And if you do that every day, a power that's like unreal to have. And I took that when I was 16, maybe 17, whatever it was, and I used it and I started like accomplishing all this crazy stuff. Know why? Because I could, and because I
Yeah.
knew I could. And or how about this? Because I didn't say that I couldn't. So that was amazing.
Oh,
Illusions by
I
Richard
love
Dawson.
that.
You can
That
read
rem
it in a few hours.
I usually like this time last year during winter, I got very, very, very depressed. And so this year I was a little kind of hesitant, kind of had like PTSD from that darkness that I felt. And have started practicing more gratitude. And at first I was like, oh God, this is so lame. This is doing nothing. But I found that in a way it's kind of rewiring myself because I'm just being thankful and thinking about the things that I am lucky to have in my life, and it has really changed my mood. And again, similar to what you're talking about with this book, it is just the power of the mind to switch your thinking and to kind of rewire a little bit about what you're capable of is quite impressive.
And the way you think
So
about it, so you are, no matter what anybody tells you, 100% charge of your mood every minute.
yes,
Period. So if you know that, then why choose to be in a bad mood?
right, exactly.
Makes sense. People ask
Yeah,
me all the time, "Hey, how are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm happy," and that's kind of my thing. And they're
yeah,
like, "God, you're happy all the time." I'm like, "Yeah, because I choose to be."
right, exactly. Okay, tell me more about Greatest Salesman.
Oh, greatest salesman in the books in the world. So I read this shortly right when I got into college, and I was working at a shoe store in Vegas on the Strip, at Dillard's department store, selling lady shoes. And I remember going to at my lunch break every day and reading it in the food court, and I had a crush on this girl working at Hot Dog on a Stick.
I can totally picture this. Okay, keep
But
going.
she was like way out of my league, right? And then part of what this book got me to do is to eventually ask her out on a date, and we did, and it was awesome. But so there's so many other things
Wow.
it did for me. But this one I have a copy of. I filed the. Do you guys ever do this with books? You file. It's a hardbound, and I cover. I take the cover and I put it someplace so I don't ruin it.
Yes, I
Yeah,
do. And then I lose it
because
though.
yeah, I've got like a stack of these at home.
Yeah.
This one is interesting because this particular version is actually signed. Um, maybe I should have told you the story later than start with it, but in
No.
1971, October 12th, and I was in when I was engaged, gosh, way, way, way back when, I went to my father-in-law's library. They like literally have like a small library in their house.
Yeah.
And this book had already changed my life. And I'm looking around, and I found the book, and I get it out. I'm like, whoa, you have a copy of this too. And he talked to me about how like important of a book this was for him. And then it was signed to him at the beginning, and it says, "Dear Vern, this is a special book with a special message to a special friend, and it certainly has changed my life. Warmest regards, Robert." Here's the thing: is my father-in-law passed away since then, and I forgot who Robert is. But I remember him being some guy of like incredible importance.
Yeah.
So it was weird because I was connecting the dots between like it wasn't important to me, but here's this guy Robert, and then my father-in-law was extremely successful. And this book is everybody that's read it that I've talked to that's read it the way they should read it
Yeah.
has ask around and you just see what they say. And here's what I mean by should read it. So this is a really interesting book. It's about um, a salesman. Now, it's called Greatest Salesman in the World, but you don't have to be a salesman to get anything out of it. You know, it just happens to be a story about a salesman. However, if you are a salesman, you're gonna rocket your sales if you read this book. So, but it's about this guy that finds these scrolls, these ancient scrolls, and the first scroll instructs him to read the scrolls, or maybe it's the guy that was mentoring him. I don't remember, but to read the scrolls every day, in the morning, at lunch, and then out loud at night before he goes to the next scroll. And that's the way they want you to read the book. So this has 10 scrolls in it. It takes you 10 months to read this book if you do it right. And you don't skip ahead. You read scroll number one, and you read it in the morning, you read it in the afternoon, and then you read it aloud at night. And this book is all about, as you can begin to see with that alone, is creating habits and good habits. And
Okay.
it's a natural thing in humans that if you do something the same for, they say, 21 days in a row, it becomes a habit. So if you guys want to change a bad habit, replace it with something that's a good habit, do it in 21 days. And then at that point, it actually becomes part of your world. So in reading scroll number one, now it's become part of your world, scroll number one, and you go into two, and so forth. And I'll give you an idea of just kind of what the titles of some of these scrolls are.
Yeah.
Um, and you'll see what I mean. One is, this is kind of randomly. This is scroll number two. Oh, it doesn't say titles, but I'll tell you what they're about from memory.
Yeah.
One is about persistence, being persistent. Another one is about approaching every day with love in your heart. There's another one is about controlling your emotions, different things like that. So there's 10 of them. And interestingly enough, it has a lot to do with illusions because
Hmm.
in a way, it's a similar message. Now, this book was written in 1968, which weirdly enough was my birth year as well. Uh, and but the messages were very similar to Richard Bach's messages as well. And it makes you
Right.
think what life would have been back when there were so few books, or a
Yeah.
lot less than there are now, at least in 1968. But why this message is similar, and if this message is kind of similar, which is that life is the way you perceive it, and that you have complete control over your own success in this case. So this is more success oriented, and that it basically says anybody can achieve success with the right outlook, by cultivating the right positive habits, by embracing love, and by controlling their emotions. Uh, and yeah, once you read through this, it's like I doubled this on top of my illusions, like, experience.
Yes.
I'm like, I can conquer the whole world at this point. And you know what? Maybe that's why I didn't read any other books. 'Cause I figured this is it. I'm good.
That's all you need.
Yeah, this is it. There's no other motivational book in the future that's going to actually influence me. I'm sure there's great ones out there that I haven't read, but
I love that. It reminds me a little bit of like some of the concepts in Buddhism as well, where you are
yeah.
trying to manage your emotions and not everything, not every thought that pops into your head is real or true, you know? So
Yeah,
good stuff.
isn't Buddhism basically, forgive the word, but like shit happens and it's the way you deal with it that counts?
Basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. How you react to it or how you respond to it or how you do or do not rise to the occasion. So interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. Very cool. Well, Matt, this has been a really fun conversation. I absolutely adore learning about these books. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about, or any recommendations you had, or how can we connect with you?
Boy, no, I'm just so happy that I got the opportunity to share with whoever's watching or listening right now that these books have been amazing to me and that changed my life. And although I'm not a reader, I got so much out of
It
these.
changed your life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, it's weird because I actually went through a period, maybe like 15 years, where, and I talk about this in some other places and
Yeah.
whatnot. So you might come across it, but there's about a period of 15 years or so where I kind of forgot these things. And
Mm,
I got into mediocrity and I lived a fine life.
yeah.
And but it was just fine, and I stopped the momentum. And then I felt just mediocre. And
Hmm.
it was only about 2 years ago and this is when you met me. As a matter of fact, you were largely responsible for talking me into doing this. I realized that I didn't want to be mediocre and I wanted to have a life of purpose and I wanted to live my dream and I wanted to leave a mark and, have
Yeah.
my daughter at one point in time say, my dad did that. and I knew deep down it was pearls. And I brought these books out again, Illusions and Greater Salesman of the World, and I started looking at these again, and that kind of helped me jumpstart my whole power of perception. And the minute I did that, the minute I started just shooting the moon again, and having like an incredible amount of momentum in my life in the last 2 years, um, because of this. So I guess my message to anybody would be, if you feel mediocre, you don't feel mediocre. If you have a dream and you're not living the dream, it's not too corny to think that that can happen. Check your perception. Maybe use one of these books as a jump start to doing that. And yeah, as far as
Yeah.
pearls, come and learn about pearls on my YouTube channel if you want, because it's fun
Mm.
and we have a good time doing it, like burning stuff on Paris.
Right.
And other than
Oh,
that, if I can help you with anything in life,
mm.
find me. I'm glad to help you all out.
This was so fun. Thank you very much. I just
Thanks for
adored
including
this.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll have more details about how you can connect with Matt below in the show notes, but also I really love how we kind of ended this on a really positive note. I think some of us, not all of us, are struggling a little bit with, the world right now. And I think that also that feeling of mediocrity too, is something I think we all can relate to. At some point we felt that way. So these are definitely two books that I'll be picking up. So thank
Can't
you,
wait
Matt.
till you talk to me about it when I see you next time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.